In this video, which will be the first of several videos for our infrastructure services section, we're going to talk about configuring and verifying device management. And there's a few different variations we can do with this. And I'm going to start off on a Genus 3 router, where we're going to start working on the console and the VTY line, and then work on Telnet and SSH, and then we're going to flip over to the DNS, or to the web server, secure web server, secure copy, and TFTP. So the couple of things that need to be completely known about device access control is the bulk of this is going to be for remote IP-based connectivity, meaning Telnet or SSH, which are going to be the most commonly used techniques for manually managing your networking devices. So as we go through, you'll see a bulk of the configuration is going to look the same as our security section, but knowing the differences between them are going to be very helpful. So let me do a quick show user, and you'll see that show user basically shows you who's connected where on what. So right now I'm connected where that asterisk shows up. I'm connected to line 0, which is console 0. There's only one console line, so there's always 0. So it's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. And right now I haven't been idle at all. Basically the idle timer won't increment because there's consistent bits going back and forth. So you'll never see that idle timer go out. The host is idle, and the console 0 is the line that I'm connected on. Now, there is a couple things to note about line console 0. So line console 0, and we have several options here to work with it. You can do a lot with it. I'm not going to get into hardly any of this, other than the fact that when you're dealing with this, the most common things to do is to prevent users from networks that you do not want connecting to the box, to prevent from connecting that. So basically what that means is, if you went into this router and you were to say access class 1 in, and you were to prevent 192.168, it's actually not going to take effect on the console line. Now you might ask, well, why is that? Well, because of the fact that this is a physically connected cable from your laptop or your computer with the DB9 or USB to DB9 connector that physically plugs into the router, or the console port. I shouldn't say it's a router because it could be anything. The one thing that I've actually seen people do, and actually I got called into a client's location just last week for this. They said, we can't connect into the box. I said, you can't connect into the box. I said, what do you mean? And he goes, I try to console into it, nothing shows up. I said, uh-huh. And I said, can you Telnet into the box? And he goes, yeah, all day long. I said, okay, let's do that. So what he did basically, and I'm not going to demo this because I'll actually lock myself out. If you type in no login, what that's going to mean is you will not be able to log into the router from the console port. Do not do this unless you have Telnet access into the box. Pretty simple and straightforward, right? So the first thing that we're going to take a look at is going to be connectivity to the device via IP. So that's going to mean what? Telnet! Yay! Well, nobody likes Telnet. So the first thing we're going to do actually here is that's a console port. So the one thing here that I would do is type in logging Synchronous. This what is going to end up happening here is simple. Notice how that when the syslog message pops up, that the carriage return or the enter key, it automatically reconnects itself up one line below that. Because normally, if you don't have logging Synchronous enabled, your connection will end up over here at the end of console, and you'll be just typing along, and you won't even realize it, and then you'll have end, and it'll be like console D, and you typed in end, and you kicked it out, or write memory, or whatever. You entered some command, and then it's trailing off the back of the word console, right where I'm highlighted there, and you can keep it all along going, and you enter something incorrectly, and you look up, and you're like, and you're like trying to decipher what you read, and trying to put the two words together. So logging Synchronous will drop you off here. Very, very nice. So that is going to be how we go along and get that situated. So what we're going to focus on now is going to be the VTY line. So the VTY line, if we go to global config and type in line VTY space, we have 1869 virtual teletype. That's what VTY stands for, in case you didn't know. And so basically, this is what you would use to connect to the router via IP. So Telnet or SSH. So pretty straightforward for the most part. I'm sure most of you know this. So we're going to say 0 space 4. That's the most common, the first 5 lines. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So we have that. And now what we're able to do in here, we're able to specify a whole bunch of other stuff, just like the console port. Well, the most common things that you're going to see here are going to be logging synchronous. So we can get that repaint like we just showed. Then the other one, the most common thing is going to be transport, question mark, input. What protocols you want allowed to have connectivity to this box? Most of the time it's going to be SSH. And now I'm not saying that I said this in a class a couple months ago. I said only smart people use SSH. And I actually received kind of a nasty email from a student in the class, and this person was taking my comment as a direct comment against them, saying that they were not smart. And I clarified. I didn't respond to the email. I clarified myself the next time we were in the class, and I said there was actually a misunderstanding about my comment about smart people. Only smart people use SSH, and sometimes you can't. There are older devices that do not support SSH, and they only support Telnet. So I was more like my way of trying to drive home the point of use SSH. But if you can't, don't freak out about it. The benefit to using SSH is all of your commands, regardless of what they are, whether it's you're authorizing yourself to access the device, you're copying the config, whatever. Your connection to and from the control plane of the router is going to be, actually I should say the management plane, because there is a slight difference, is going to be encrypted. So you could type in SSH and Telnet, and both will work. So type in do show run pipe section line, and you'll see here that it's both SSH and Telnet is underneath VTY. So transport input is Telnet and SSH, right? That's great. Now you can type in transport preferred, and you're going to say SSH. Do that show run again. Oop. And it should say just SSH. Oh, it doesn't, sorry. But anyway, the point here is you can specify which one you want it to allow. It'll allow both, but that's okay if you don't have that. So now, the best thing for you to do here is to use whatever meets your compliance. But since this is an exam and not a real-world example, I'm going to show you how to do both. So we've already got Telnet enabled. So we're going to type in, since we have Telnet enabled, what we have to do now is we actually have to configure a username. Because what happens if we try to telnet to this box? Telnet, do telnet to 10.255.7.7. It says password required but not set. So it goes denied. 2 ways you can do this. Line VTY 0 space 4, username, or I'm sorry, login, and we can type in password to Cisco and be done, and do that same command over again. It'll let you log in. You type in Cisco, and you type in enable, but guess what? You don't have an enable password configured, you won't be able to connect into it. Exit out of here. The most common way to do this, and you could set the enable password, type in enable password is Cisco. Do that telnet again. Cisco, enable Cisco, and now you're at the, you could do that. Or if you're a more efficient way, not a better way or smarter way, would be to type in username is Rob with a privilege of 15, and your secret is Cisco. Now if I was to go back to line VTY 0 space 4 and type in login is local, and hit the enter key, I could say, now let's do that telnet again, and I type in Rob and I type in Cisco, and guess where I get dropped off at? I get dropped off with privilege mode, which is level privilege level 15 or enable mode. So that's the most common way that I would break it down. Now for SSH, there's 3 things you have to have ready and able to be done with SSH. That is, you have to have a unique router name. It cannot be router pound. It cannot be router because that's not unique. You have to have a domain name configured, and then you have to create at least, and this is for SSH 2.0, at least a 768-bit RSA token, or I'm sorry, crypto key generated for the encryption. I always do 1024 or higher because 1024 allows you to do reverse or backwards compatibility with SSH version 1. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to exit out of here, and I'm going to connect out of here. I'm going to type in crypto key generate RSA. I'm going to say modulus is what you're going to do. It says provide modulus bits in the command line, so modulus, and then it's going to ask me what is the bit length or the size of the key. I'm going to use 1024. Hit the enter key, and now it says please define a domain name first. Okay, well it's pretty specific here. So if I would type in host name of router and try to do that same thing again, it says please define a host name other than router. Okay, R7. Or host name R7. I'm going to type in IP domain name. Domain name is going to be CCNP. And now I'm going to hit the up arrow. And now it's going to create it's going to do that. And what happens? SSH is automatically enabled. You don't have to type in any IP SSH enable or any other kind of weird commands. It automatically does it. And now what we can do is we can exit out of here. We can type in SSH question mark, and we have to type in -L. -L allows us to change the username to what we're going to be needing to log in with. We're going to type in Rob, and then the IP address is going to be 10.255.7.7. I'm going to hit the enter key. Now it says that. I'm going to type in Cisco, and now I'm at this mode. And what I'm going to do, notice how I'm hitting the enter key, and now how much slower it is. That's because we're encrypted. Encrypting traffic takes a little bit longer to take care of. The next thing we're going to do is do a show users. Here I am. I'm logged in under VTY. Username is Rob. I'm idle, and I came in from 25577. So it's a little bit more specific, right? I'm going to exit out of here, and that's going to let me close out if I do show user again. Oh, show user. Guess what? I'm on the console again, and that's SSH. Pretty straightforward for the most part. Now, there's a question, what about securing it from remote access? Well, that's one thing you could do. What I usually do when I'm in a network is I will block all the user access to it. Basically what I do is I create an access list, so config T, and I create an access list that says IP access list standard, and I type in SSH, and I type in permit 10.1.100.0 0.0.0.255. Now see, this is pretty broad, and I'm doing this because I want to be able to connect to this box from any one of the routers in the OSPF area. Now normally what I would do is if you're an admin and you've thought ahead, I would highly recommend of giving every admin computer a static IP. Whether you go into your Windows DHCP servers and you set a reservation to where if you see this MAC address, you automatically give it this IP address, and we'll talk about how this is relatable inside of iOS DHCP with the client identifier and how it does pretty much the exact same job. Basically, you're mapping the MAC address to an IP address, and then that's the only IP you'll ever receive. So that's typically the way that I do it. I can hit the enter key here, and now I've only got a single permit command. So 10.1.100, and I'm able to come in from that way. So now I'm going to type in line console 0, or I'm sorry, line VTY 0 space 4. I'm going to type in access class SSH in. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to exit out of here. let me go end out completely. I'm going to type in SSH dash L is going to be Rob, and the IP address is 10.255.7.7. It says connection refused by remote host. If I type in show access list, I don't have access to this box. And why might that be? Well, because of the fact that when I SSH'd, I sourced off of this interface. So I wonder if I can actually change the source. Yeah, you can't. So if I was to do a telnet, if I was to go to router 1 though, and do a do show IP route, I should be able to telnet, do a SSH, let's ping 10.1.100.7. I can ping it, that's a great sign. I'm going to do SSH dash L is going to be Rob to 10.255.7.7. There it goes, Cisco, and there I am. I'm on the box. So now I'm SSH. If I go to router 7 and I type in show users, I'm connected to this guy. I have two connections. I have one coming from the console, which is how I'm directly connected on 7, as well as on VTY. Now, if we also do a show processes CPU sorted, the one you should see right here is going to be the TTY or the actually it's not even showing up here. The exec mode right here. This one right here. This is showing that I am accessing this box from. The exec mode is the most heavily used one because I'm doing a lot of configuration from the executive from enable mode. So that's how that would be calculated. So I'm going to go ahead and on 1 I'm going to exit out of here, and that's how you would do that. Now the next one we're going to show you is I actually have to show you on a physical router. So I'm going to SSH into my home router, and I'm going to show you the web, HTTPS, a secure copy, and TFTP. So one right after another. So I'm going to call up my home router by pulling this guy up, and I'm going to type in home router, load, and open. So here I have it up. I'm going to type in Rob and my password. And there I am. So I'm on my home router, and right now if I do a show run pipe section HTTP, I have IP HTTP server, IP HTTP authentication local, and secure server. So basically I have both my web server and my secure server connected at the same time. So what that means is if I was to pull up a web browser, I'm going to use this new they call it Edge from, actually no, I'll just use Chrome because I don't know where to find it. I'm on Windows 10, so I'm going to just grab this guy right here and I'm going to bring it over, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you guys here. I'm going to type in 192.168 dot, oh, that's my, sorry, that's my my server's management module. If I do go to the end and bring all this out. So now here I am on my computer, and I'm going to type in Rob and my password. Now I'm going to say the password. Now I'm on my 3725, and I'm connected to it via the web server. So now if I was to come over here to this guy and type in show users, it says that here I am, I'm configured via this guy. Don't worry about this top connection. I usually do a connection in from work. That's my work address. And you can try to get after that, but good luck. So we have that one. So what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to from here I'm actually going to type in HTTPS : and I'm going to type in 192.168.1.1. Well, sorry, not that. Home HTTPS. Now it says, now if I go to details, okay, so I might actually have to authentication local. Yeah, it should work. I don't know why it's not. Okay. But that's how I'm connected via VTY. So I'm connected via VTY here. So what I'm going to do now is, if you were to turn the HTTP server on, authentication local, when you turn on the secure server, you need to make sure that you have to have some way of authenticating yourself to this box. So you have to type in IP. Oh, actually, you know what? Hold on a second. Let me go to global config and type in IP HTTP secure server IP HTTP authentication. I can use local, and that's what I'm doing right now. As you can see, you can use enable. This is a 3725 running 12.4 code, so it's a little bit dated. So we have that. So now what I'm going to do is, now you've seen how to do web, I'm also going to show you how to do secure copy. Now secure copy is a little bit different, and secure copy, you have to have AAA enabled. So you can enable AAA. So you go to global config and type in AAA new model, and then what you would do is you would type in AAA authentication is going to be I'm going to use the login, I'm going to use the default, and I'm going to use the local database. Okay. I'm also going to type in AAA authorization is going to be where is it? Exec as default, and I'm going to use the local. So I'll be able to log into the exec process. So I don't want to lock myself out of the box. So now what I have to do is I have to go to the line in the console. I'm going to say line, or line VTY, so line VTY 0 space 4. I'm going to type in login, and I'm going to say authentication, or authentication is default, and I'm going to say default, and that's how it's going. Now this is a little bit older code, that's why it's a little bit different than what we talked about in the security section. So that's how this goes. And now if I was to do let me exit out of here completely and type in SSH -L rob and type in 192.168.1.1 Cisco, it's not going to let me log in because that's the wrong password. Let me type in my password for real. And now I'm in enable mode. So I've been able to Telnet in, and I'm using AAA to connect in now. So now what I'll be able to do is I'll be able to go to global config and type in IP SCP server and enable, and now I've enabled secure copy. So I'll be able to do that. I just want to show you guys how to enable it. I'm not actually going to do anything with it. Now, the one thing that a lot of people have a hard time with is the TFTP. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ping 192.168.1.151, which happens to be the computer I'm pinging recording on from here, and that I have 5 solid pings. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to pull up my TFTP server, type in TFTP, and I'm going to pull up TFTP desktop app, which is this guy right here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say the software I'm going to say is my address right here, which is this guy. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a dir and show flash. No files on the device. Dir flash. Well, how the heck does that work? I'm a bit perplexed now. That's got me worried. Show version pipe include iOS. Let's do a show ver. Let's see here. Slot 0. That's what it is. Dir. Show slot 0. There it is. That's why it's not there. Because if you look at do a dir, I've got 32 megs and I've got it on slot 0. So I'm booting off of a flash configuration I've got. So if I was to go to cd slot 0 and do a dir, there's my operating system. So now what I could do is I could do a copy. So I can go copy slot 0 to TFTP and hit the enter key. And then the source file name is going to be this guy. I'm going to copy this in here. I'm going to hit the enter key. And what's the address of the remote host? Is 192.168.1.151. I'm going to hit the, what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to browse for my directory. I'm going to hit the up arrow here and scroll up just a little before I do this, because you want to make sure you have this stuff situated before you jump into anything. Is you want to go to this PC, and I'm going to go to, I forgot what I had it set up for. Actually, let me do a show directory. TFTP program files. Yeah, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go close on that. I'm going to change the directory off screen. So I'm going to change that to be documents, and then I'm going to make a new folder, type in iOS, and I'm going to say okay. So now I've changed it to iOS, so I know where it's at. I can go to show directory. There's nothing in there. I can go close. Now I can type in that's going to be that guy. Now I have to say the destination name is going to be that, and now it's starting to copy. Now notice how right here it shows me copying the file, and right now I'm doing a TFTP copy, and everything's going across. And so right now we're doing a TFTP copy from my home router to my home computer. So if anything was to go south, I have a copy of the iOS, and then I can take that and copy it back up to the box if I need to. So it gives me that capability of getting things situated. Now the one thing you'll have to make sure of is if you do happen to have this, if anything goes wrong, you have to make sure that port 69 is available. 69 is the port for TFTP. So it doesn't take very long to copy this. And unfortunately, it doesn't give you a time limit or anything like that. It just basically says, you know, it's going to take X amount of time. It just kind of goes. So it does take a couple of minutes to get across. Actually, if I so it is going pretty quick. And as you can see, it's moving at 280 bytes a second, which I don't even know what that equates to in time frame. But you know, that's pretty much what it boils down to. It's actually pretty quick in the most case. So as you can see, it doesn't take very long. Now this is about a 45 meg file, and as it goes across, it does take some time. But once it's copied, it goes pretty quick. Now what actually is taking the time is I'm copying from slot 0. Slot 0 happens to be like I have a 64 meg flash drive that's plugged into that port, and that's where I have my my configuration saved, because my flash on the motherboard of the router is only 32 meg, as you can see right here. I don't have enough room on my flash of my NVRAM of my router to support the operating system that I have installed on it. So I had to install a 64 meg flash card inside of the router in order for me to support this. So as soon as this is done copying, which won't take too much longer, it goes by pretty quick. But this is going to be one of those things where you have to make sure you understand what's going on and get it situated and go from there. So, but yeah, that's pretty much all there really is to it. There's a question: is TFTP the most common method of doing this? It is, from what I've seen. You can certainly do an FTP. Now TFTP, it's kind of like UDP. So UDP is, I'm just going to start sending the traffic, and there you go. It copied the files over. So we're good there. Now if I go to show directory, now I have my operating system inside here, and away we go. So that's pretty much what you want to see. If I click on close and close that out, now you can actually reverse the direction too. So if I wanted to, let's say for instance I blew away the operating system and I needed to copy, but the router was still up and reachable via the IP network, I could go out and copy the operating system back to slot 0. So I could go here and type in copy flash, or copy TFTP to slot 0, and hit the enter key, and then I could type in the address of the remote host is 192.168.1.151. Hit the enter key. The name of the file is that. Hit the enter key, and destination file is going to be the because I'm in slot 0 because I went to a CD slot 0, so I changed the directory. I did that, and now I'm able to go in here and I could copy it over. The problem with TFTP though is it doesn't have any way of checking to see if there's enough room in the directory. So as long as that capability is there, and this is my home router, I'm routing through my home internet, so I'm not, I mean I could copy it and blow it away, but I really don't want to do that and risk losing my router and having to do an X modem copy. So that's going to be actually the one other thing that I want to touch on. Actually, before I get to that, the TFTP, it just sends the traffic, and it'll keep sending it until it can't send it anymore. There's only a get and there's only a push. So a get is a receive and a push is a push. So you could do this. I'm going to Control C out of it because I don't want to risk breaking my box, but you could do that. The other one here is if you happen to be in the worst luck ever, and you went in and you blew away the operating system on the flash, and then you were in the process of uploading the new operating system. As a matter of fact, I didn't have this happen to me recently, but I'm sitting there and I was on the edge of my seat and I was like chewing my fingernails because I was so nervous because the device I was doing this work on was located 1,000 miles away and there was nobody. The physical location of the site was like literally 25 miles from anything because it's a gigantic factory and it just was in the middle of nowhere, and it had I think 2 T1s was the internet circuit. So I was doing this during a shutdown of the plant in order for this to work because I had to have the bandwidth. And I'm sitting there and I'm like on the edge of my seat. My coworker gave me the thumbs up to go ahead and do it, and I was like, I'm sweating because if something was to happen with the power to the box, if you blow away the operating system wherever it was or wherever the system was configured to boot from, in this case slot 0, if it is configured to boot from slot 0 and it goes and looks in that directory and it doesn't see any files that it can boot from, the operating system .bin, what it'll actually do is it will go into Ramon and it'll say, okay, well, tell me what to do next. I have nothing to boot from. And sometimes it can actually get into a loop where it'll look there. If it can't find it, it'll say, okay, well, let me reboot and try it again. And it'll do this over and over and over again. So I was fortunate enough I was able to get the file copied over to the flash and be done with it. But I was on the edge of my seat the entire time because I was like, oh my god, I hope this doesn't break. Because if it does, someone has to physically go to the router, plug a console cable into it, has to kick off a what they call an X modem. An X modem means you're going to use the throughput of the capabilities of the console cable to move the file from the router or from the laptop through the console cable up through the console port into the flash. It's a very, very time-consuming process, and if you're at all familiar with the way that this stuff works, the default baud rate for console is 9600 bits. That means if you don't change that, then you're going to be forwarding in 9600 bits on an X modem copy. Now, what you would normally do is on the router, you would set the baud rate, so set all caps baud to 115/200, assuming that throughput or that baud rate is supported, which basically is 128K. Is basically what you're setting it to. And then if you were to go in and then set the serial port on the laptop to be 115/200, then you'd be able to send the traffic a little bit faster. It's about 5K per second or so. It's still pretty slow, but it's better than 9600. And then you'd be able to copy over the console cable up to your device and then do that. I have had to do that a couple of times, just practicing doing iOS upgrades, just to see what it was like, and spending hours and hours and hours trying to figure out what I was doing wrong, and so a lot of trial and error. So that's why I'm pretty confident in this part, but you can still run into problems if you're not careful. So that's the part that I really wanted you guys to be aware of. So I'm actually getting a dare. I dare you to fix it. Well, you just saw me download it, so basically just be the opposite way. And I just showed you that. So you know what? I'm going to take the high road and say, you know what? You can dare me all you like. I'm going to be a smart engineer and not do that, because I don't feel like having to xmodem a 45 meg file up. It's bad enough to do 12.2 code on a 3750X, and it's I think a 12 meg file, and that takes like 40 minutes. So if you take 12 megs versus 40 against the 45 meg time limit versus a 45 meg file, it'll be 2 in the morning before I get done. So, but anyway, that's what I wanted to show you guys. We're going to take a look at getting into the rest of the services and go from there. So I hope this has been informative for you, and I just thank you for viewing.